Welcome back to another episode of the Walking Towards Light podcast. I'm your one and only host, Walker Williams, and it's a place to where you can learn, you can grow your consciousness, and you can be your best self. Welcome. It's always so good to be back here doing what I love, living in my purpose, talking to you guys. I feel like, damn, I gotta address the elephant in the room. I cannot do that this week. Of missing last week. I told y'all if y'all made it to the last week, if y'all made it to the end of last week's episode, I said that my homeboys was coming into town. If I was able to make a podcast, it would be a miracle. Okay. Look, I said it, and we had a ball. I wasn't able to record, but it was such a fun time last week. My friends came into town. I went to my first NFL game last week. Go Cowboys. And we actually lost. So I'm sorry to start this podcast frustrating any Cowboy haters. There's a lot of Cowboy haters out there. I gotta, say that. But it was a wonderful time with my friends, my homies. So I wasn't able to record last week, but and I also, right after they left, I ended up catching a minor cold as well. So I had to recover from that last week as well. And I'm better now. I feel like I'm clear. I'm not congested. I really fully healed up yesterday, what it feels like, to where I just like, okay, I think I'm getting back to 100%. Eat your elderberry gummies, people. It's time to go and stock up on all of your immunity shots, all of your self-care things when you get a cold. It's around that season. It's starting to get a little nippy outside, so you need to make sure you're taking in a lot of vitamin C, some good supplements, some good vitamin D, zinc. Come on now. Especially myself. I'm building my immune system right now. But yeah, but let's get to the main point. Let's get to today. Let's get to what we're talking about this week. I had to update y'all before we got into it, but this episode is, like I tell y'all every week, these are things that I feel the most in my soul and my spirit to speak on and to talk about. And the last episode when I talked about fear, which got a lot of engagement on TikTok about some of the things that I said about fear. And I'm very grateful from everybody who supported, everybody who showed up and, put their perspectives and had conversation in the comments. It meant a lot to me. One of the things that I always wanted is for my words to reach people and people to feel that. But not only that, but create a space to where people, perspectives, and thoughts can be respected and honored, and that discourse can be respectful instead of like insults and feeling like people are bigger than other people and egos get involved and saying my God is better than your God and I'm better than you because I believe this way. We are actually having constructive conversations of how we feel and see things, which meant a lot to me, and that's the space that I want to continue to create with my platform and the things that I say and the things that we're learning and we're growing to understand. But with that fear podcast, we was talking about fear, and fear of death came up in my last podcast. And I said I want to talk about that. I want to give death its own podcast separately because that's a heavy topic that don't be discussed, that I feel like needs to be discussed. And after going back through my podcast, like that's the next thing that I felt like made sense to talk about. And I told y'all, season 2, we talking about some shit. Season 2, we are talking about some deep shit. I told y'all, we're not holding anything back this season. We getting to the I'm talking about we going all the way into the depths of the oceans of deep. Okay. And this is death is something that don't want to take lightly, because death is so heavy. It's it's something that I feel like we haven't collectively processed or have a understanding. Yeah, there are different cultures and ways of seeing death, or there are people that see death beautifully, which we will talk about. But I just feel like collectively we're not there in terms of death and our perspectives of it. So that's what we're talking about this week. We're talking about death and what death means, and how to look at death differently, and how that perspective can change your life depending on how you see it. So let's get into the episode. Also, I want to make sure I say this too. I forgot to say this. This is my disclaimer. I do not know what's going to happen after death. I don't know, listen to this podcast with a grain of salt, okay? Take what you want. Let whatever you feel lands within your soul, right? This is just coming from my heart. This is coming from my soul of what I believe death means. So, that's my disclaimer. Now, the first thing I want to talk about is, when you talk about death and when you get into bringing that up or in conversations and things like that, it's just automatically like, whoa, buddy, this is getting dark. Let's not talk about this. It's a very sensitive subject for a lot of people, right? And I want to start off with my childhood. And I think this is when we're all introduced. Of course, we're all introduced. I can't speak for every single person, but I feel like majority of us be introduced to death in our childhood. And I feel like when I was thinking about this podcast, and I was thinking about asking myself when was the first time that I had to face death and actually experience it, I think the first time was a relative, but it's a distant memory. But I feel like the first time it really hit me in terms of like, what is this? I don't like this. Like, it hurts. It's painful. I don't understand this. It had to be with my grandma. My dad's mother. And I think that was the first time that realization of death really hit home to me, because, we used to go to my grandma's house every holidays, go visit her at her home. Like, all of the memories are coming in of my grandma right now. And we used to share Christmas. I remember going over there Christmas and being with her and spending time with her. And when she passed, I think when you're a child, you don't know how to process death, right? I think even when we're older, we still are learning how to process death when we get older. But especially when you're a child, it's foreign. It's you looking at it through a lens of your loved ones and your people are going to be with you forever. That's how I feel like how majority of us children will perceive death, of like, we seeing the loved ones around us and we feel like this is going to be around us forever until it happens. And you like, what is this? Or are you telling me like a person is gone and just never comes back once they go away, once they pass away? It's like, it's so, we can't conceptualize the act of it. It don't make sense to us at that time. And I feel like for me, it didn't make sense. I cried. I was I remember crying on my bunk bed that night. After hearing the news, and you go to a funeral and all of those things just seem so like eerie. It's as a kid, it don't make sense. It's something that you have to get used to as time goes on in your life. And I feel like, of course, your identity, I feel like the identity of death, or your definition of death, gets attached to whatever tradition that you're involved in growing up as well. In religion, you view death through the lens of that. Of myself as being Christian when I was younger. You see it through a Christian lens of this is what happens, and that they're with God now, and they're in heaven now, and these are things that your parents would tell you, and which will of course comfort you and give you a slight understanding, but it's still, I feel like it still comes from a very, especially from depending on what tradition you're born in, you still look at it as something that's terrifying, scary. Like it's not like a understanding, or I feel like what I want to say. It don't feel like a knowing. It don't feel like a knowing in your soul, right? You just going off of what you believe with your tradition and religion and things of that such. But I think the importance of this is to talk about how we grow into avoiding death and not talking about it. It's not something that's really our fault. It's just something that we see. It's something that the environment that we grow into is just like a natural thing of don't talk about death. We're not talking about that. If you bring up death, people are gonna look at you and be like, whoa, buddy, this is getting too heavy. We're not talking about this. Let's not talk about that. Right? There's a fear that grows with the thought of death, the thought of dying. And I feel like that's more of a Western thing, right? Here in the West, it's more pushed to the side. It's more, let's be naive about it and not discuss it until it happens. And this was one of the strong points in my soul that made me want to talk about this, because we only talk about death when it presents itself, when tragedy happens, when a sudden death happens out of nowhere. That's when we get to a place where we talk about death, and we're shooketh up out of our souls, to where we're looking at life differently. Life all of a sudden becomes alive because one of our loved ones just passed away tragically. And now we're all of a sudden remembered and reminded of how precious life is, right? Rather than becoming aware of death, not dwelling on death all the time, but having the awareness that it is going to happen, right? Death in this life is 100% guaranteed. There's no escaping death. And that's the thing. It's like, let's not let sudden and surprise deaths wake us up into living and to loving what's around us. Let's have the awareness now. And I think the understanding of death could help you not fear it, but actually just be aware of it. Like, to me personally, I view death as transforming, right? And the reason why I view death, and it made me, I feel like for myself, I feel like the reason why I look at death differently and my perspectives on death changed is because of what I understood of it. that death, our essence, our soul, beyond this vehicle that we're in, never dies. The physical body dies. That is what sheds, but the essence of us and the essence of my soul never dies, right? And I think one of kind of like a simple understanding of this is energy. We are all energy. Everything around us, me, you, my plant, this computer, the light, every single thing is energy that is vibrating at different frequencies, right? Which creates matter, right? This is how we're able to interact with everything around us, because we are actually interacting with every vibrational field that we can, that's matter. But what I'm saying is everything around us is energy. Therefore, if you look up the definition of energy, you'll know that energy can never be if you look up the definition of energy, you'll know that energy can never be destroyed. It can only transform. And it can never be created. This is why, and this would also change my perspective of God, because energy and God is the same thing. If you ask, well, how was God created? Guess what they would tell you with God? They would tell you that God has always been and always will, can never be created nor destroyed. The same definition of energy. It can never be created. It can never be destroyed. It just is. Right? It's just that I am. Right? You remove everything and it just be I am. And that I am is everything. Right? So if we're all energy, nothing can be destroyed. Therefore, once this is over, once we shed this physical body, we still live on. We just take on another form of being, a living, right? Depending on what our soul wants to explore. This is not the ending. See, that's the thing. My perspective of death changed because I knew that, and I understood in my inner being that I can never die. This form that I'm in, this ego identity of Walker, of the life that I lived, the experiences that I had, right? That dies. But the essence and the soul of me never dies. And that, for me, comforts me. It makes me feel whole. It makes me feel like, it makes me live in the now. Because Ram Dass, I have to say this, Ram Dass has said, my spiritual teacher personally, he has said that death is the prerequisite of living your life joyfully now. And that's so beautiful, because you look at death as something that makes you live in the moment. The more that you're aware of this death, the more that you're aware that you're going to die, it actually don't make you take anything for granted. You won't take anything for granted in this life, because in your awareness, you know that that moment is going to come. We all don't know when or how, but the awareness of that, I'm going to die one day. That is what's the awakening. That is what awakens you to live now. Not things that happen to wake you up, but also having that knowing of it in this moment. And even last week while I was sick and I had a cold, right? I'm laying on this couch and I'm just like sick, nose running, and I was just thinking to myself, and these do be my thoughts, but it's not meant to be like scary or to alarm me. It's to awaken me. It's like I'm on the couch and I was just thinking to myself of like, I'm going to die one day. And that thought alone, it stays with me, because that thought makes me live in my truth even more. It makes me want to live my life fully expressed of who I am at this lifetime. I don't have to hide my true self. Like, all the people that know me know that I don't hold anything back of who I am. I'm going to be my authentic self 100% all the time, because I know I'm going to die. I know one day I'm going to have to face death. And having that knowing is what makes me live every moment like it's my last, and be and do the things that I want to do in this lifetime, right? It creates awareness to where you don't take anything for granted. You don't take the present moment for granted. You don't take your loved ones for granted. You don't take experiences for granted. You soak every moment in, because you know that day will come. It's not like you're running from it and you're only facing it when it's there. That's how death becomes tragic. That's how death becomes something that's like out of nowhere, and it like completely shakes your whole paradigm and your whole world, because you're spending your life running from it and fearing it rather than accepting it and understanding it, not running from it. And I was speaking on the Western, and how majority of people in the West, they run from that. They fear that. And a lot of it comes from religion. A lot of it comes from tradition. We know these things. And I was reading this book this week. This also played a part of wanting to talk about this. The Tibetan book of living and dying. This book is so important in terms of facing death, understanding death, what to do in the midst of death, in preparation, what to do after someone dies, or in the face of transitioning, right? You don't have these type of conversations. We don't talk about these type of things in the West, which why I revere Eastern spirituality so much. My love for Eastern spirituality has grown over the years to where I've adopted a lot of their principles and their way of living, because to me that resonates with my soul and spirit. Because these yogis, these masters, they not only talk about death when it presents itself, they prepare with the knowing that they're going to die. Every meditation, every mindful practice is the reason, because they know that they're going to die. Meditation, they always say in the Eastern spirituality, is that meditation is basically a preparation of dying before you die, right? Shedding the ego, shedding all of these attachments before it's actually time for you to transition, which is so beautiful, because once you get to this place, you already released everything. You don't have anything to cling to, right? You don't have anything to cling to. So when it's your time, you're so free already. So the transitioning process for you is 100 times easier for your soul and your spirit. It's not something that you've been fearing your whole life, and now you at the midst of it, and now you thinking about all of these things, and you thinking about all of you're getting held to all of the attachments that you've held through your whole life, which makes your dying process tough, not easy, a struggle. Which these yogis, they have these beautiful practices of meditation, and they become so deep into their awareness and consciousness that the transition of their soul from their physical body, right, is easy. They call it dropping the body in Eastern traditions, right? And there's a story, since we're on the Eastern side of the world, one of my favorite books is the autobiography of a yogi by Paramahansa Yogananda. And the way this man passed away is, you can look it up. It's nothing I say on my podcast is cap. It's nothing that I say is bullshit, right? He was a yogi. And I'm talking about his book is amazing. It's one of the most deep spiritual books somebody could read. I would literally recommend this book to anybody. Where is it at? Where is it at? This book right here was the first book that I read that literally blew the lid. It literally blew the lid off of my mind spiritually. Like, this was my first deep spiritual book where I was like, oh shit, this is some deep spiritual shit that I was not aware of. This opened my mind, like, opened me to a world of spirituality that I knew, like, this is where I was supposed to be. Like, and this man right here, he literally took his teachings from the east to the west. That's how important this man was in his lifetime. Because he wanted to spread the philosophies and the way of living to everybody. And the way that he passed away had me speechless, because his death was like a representation or a presentation of how somebody had dedicated their life to becoming so consciously aware within their body. He was so tapped into that pure consciousness and that pure consciousness state that we can all reach. Literally, nobody is higher than anybody. The states that he reached with his own mind and consciousness, we all have the ability to get there. And he was one of the people to show, if you really dedicate yourself to go within, you will be access to every single thing, everything. And he did so much inner work and tap into that pure state of consciousness. He said a speech, and after he said this last speech, he literally just dropped to the ground, right? Therefore, he instantly dropped into this state of samadhi, right? If I don't forget, I will have the definition of samadhi right here. But he instantly dropped into a state of samadhi because of the work that he has done innerly, that he instantly has been working on this state for so long, he can instantly shift into this place. And he was known as a master, okay? A yogi master, right? Therefore, he's not the only person that has done this. A lot of masters instantly know how to go from this state to the pure consciousness state, to where the transition of their death is very easy because they already got to that point before dying, right? So once he dropped to the ground, which they say and documented as heart failure, the thing about this phenomenon of his death, his body didn't decay for 20 days. Once somebody passes away, your body starts decaying in 24 hours. Literally. His body didn't decay for a month, which the doctors in the medical field don't understand how his body didn't decay. You can look it up for yourself. And his body was there for people to view. But that's how consciously he was tapped into his soul and his consciousness, right? They view death, these yogis, these masters, as something to prepare for, as something to gradually go into, right? And I think that is so important to have the awareness of, that death can be lighter. Death can be easier the more that you prepare, the more that you consciously have that in your awareness. And just with living, it makes you live more, right? And we can even talk about Yeshua, Jesus, right? I call him Yeshua. And that's not a nickname. That was his name before actual that those letters, like letter J, actually came into existence. So his name will be Yeshua. So he even talked about, he's an example of that. He's an example of knowing that he was more than his flesh. He said it all the time. He knew that he was more than his body. And he knew that his crucifixion wasn't the end of him. That don't make him separate for what we also see. That's the thing. We look at these people and they feel like we put them on a pedestal, like we are not have the same capabilities to transcend our body, right? We get attached to the ego identity of our name, our labels, our traditions, the religions, all of these things that we hold on to in our lifetime, we attach to that. And we feel like once life is over, we're going to bring all these attachments and ego identities with us. But once this life is over, you release all of these things, right? And even bringing up Buddha, right? Y'all know me. I love all of these teachers. I view every single ascended master as a teacher. I look at them as inspiration of my own soul. And even Buddha, he always talked about clinging. This body, our loved ones, our people, they don't belong to us. My body don't belong to me. Once this is over, it's going back into the earth. The only thing that belongs to me is my essence, source, the source essence that's within me. That's the only thing that belongs to me. But once this is over, I'm shedding every single thing, right? That's why it's like, I have to love myself. I do this all the time. Like, I be feeling myself. I'm like, look, this body is temporary. Life is temporary. Like, you have to love what's in front of you. You have to love things now, but don't cling to them. You cannot cling to these things, right? Buddha talk about the essence of detachment, right? Because that's another thing with death that is hard, because we attach to these things, and it could be death of anything, death of your ego, death of just errors of yourself, right? Death of relationships, right? There's death with things that we deal with on our day-to-day basis. I mean, shit, even with myself, so many versions of myself have died, right? And I know more versions and layers of myself are going to continue to die. It's a growing process in life. I can't cling to one phase of my life, because I know I'm always growing. I'm always dying and rebirthing myself, right? There's a cycle here, right? And we cannot cling to these things. There's always continuation. There's always a continuum with life and processes and experiences. It's always going, dying, rebirth, over and over and over again. And at the same time, that's the beauty of life. Every single thing in this life comes and goes. Nothing in this life is permanent. Nothing. Right? And that's the beauty of the circle of life, right? Everything is always coming into life, coming into life. It's just when you come into this life, what we do as humans, we want to take it and hold it forever. That's what we want to do. We want to, all these things that we're experiencing and we're seeing, our loved ones, the people that we're meeting, the items, the material things that we're picking up, we want to take it and hope that we have it forever. This is where suffering is created. This is where suffering begins, because we want to hold on to these things that we find and that we love. Our friendships, relationships, family members, experiences, moments of time, ideals, all of these things. right? We want to hold on to it and hope that it never lets go. And the ideal of that is so hard because we attach to that. And the beauty of that is knowing that nothing belongs to us, people. Nothing belongs to us. So love what's in front of you now, because that's not permanent. It's not permanent. And I don't think it's fair to talk about death and not talk about grief, because grief is a real thing. And I feel like, and like I said, it's not even just death as people actually physically dying, but grief and things that die in terms of, like I said, in our daily things, relationships, people, all of these things, right? And you grieve. And I feel like I am pro grief. You have to grieve, and you have to grieve hard. And release these things is natural. And I'm not saying these things to say that death should be, even after death, to be handled easily, and that you should just be like, dying is natural thing that happens, and think of it in a very like vain type of way. No, feel every single emotion, right? I know when my loved ones pass, right? I will be emotional, very broken, heartbroken, and things like that, because that's the process of losing somebody that you truly love. That's natural. I'm not speaking of these things to avoid it or to act like it's something that shouldn't be hurt over or to cry over, to feel over, because it is, right? Everything that I'm saying is to bring light to it and to actually talk about it, right? Because everybody run from this conversation. I think the importance of this is to allow death to be a teacher for you, right? Death is the ultimate teacher of impermanence. That's the importance of this, to take everything in, soak everything in that's around you, right? No, don't be in, how can I say this? Don't be on autopilot and then let death surprise you. I would highly recommend to hold death within you. Know that your time is going to come. And I think having that mindset, you have that constant thought in your mind. You have that constant urge to love every single thing around you because of that knowing, right? And I feel like with me, in terms of death, if you was to ask me if I was scared of death, I would say I'm not scared of death, because I know myself. I know thyself. I know that my body, I know my soul will live forever beyond this vehicle, right? This rented vehicle. I said this in previous podcasts. So it's like, I think just that knowing within my soul that my soul will live eternally is just taking on another form once this lifetime is over. So I don't need to fear death, because I think also the fear of death comes with fearing the unknown. A lot of times people don't know what comes with death. That's like the age-old question. What happens after we die? Is there afterlife? And a lot of times, like I said, people go to religious beliefs or thinking that there's a heaven or hell or paradise, nirvana, things of that sort. Or a lot of people don't think nothing happens. There's atheists out here. There's non-believers that think absolutely nothing happens, that this is our only life. And that's another thing that I want to talk about, that I can't forget about, that just came to me. But it's like, a lot of times people think that this is the only life that we have, and that once it's over, it ends. That's it. We only got one shot at life. You know what I'm saying? You only live once. YOLO. And I feel like with myself, I don't see it that way. Now I have only one life as Walker, as this physical entity that you're seeing right now. But what I take form next is going to continue to live. It's my soul and my consciousness that's going to continue to live, just in a different form. It's just like how water take form in different variations. It's just like how water turns into vapor, right? It's still water. It's just in a different form. Or how if you can freeze ice, if you freeze water, it turns into ice. It's a different form. Literally. It just takes on another type of form. It can never be destroyed. It goes back to what I was saying with energy. It can never be destroyed nor created. It just is. And that's why I feel like with me, I don't fear death. And also I think that not fearing death makes me want to live life fully as who I am and I'm supposed to do. I don't hold shit back. Like I said, I don't hold shit back with me. And I think that's important for everybody to have that mindset. But also just look at death differently, y'all. Like, damn. And I have to say another quote, I have to say another favorite quote by Ram Dass. It's one of my other favorite quotes that helped me see death differently and my perspective. He has said, and I said this before on the podcast, if you remember, Ram Dass has said, death is like a tight shoe, right? Because I literally gave the same example on the podcast, but it's like you have a tight ass shoe on and you like wiggling. Just say you trying to get your shoe off without untying the shoelaces, and you wiggling like, you trying to get out, and then once you out, you like, right? That's how death is. It's like once you get out of this form, it's like, damn, that wasn't that bad. That's how I feel like it's going to be. Like it's not. It's like when you have a bad dream, right? And you wake up from that bad dream, and you like, damn, I'm still alive. That was just a dream, right? It's like, that's why I feel like that's genuinely how I feel like life is and how death is. It's just transitioning to another experience. It's never over. It's never over. And I think it's important for me to have these conversations. I want to, if anybody can have the conversations, I feel like I'm okay with having these conversations, and because I feel like it's needed. I think we spend a lot of time talking about a lot of different other things, but like, let's talk about some real shit. Let's talk about the things that's not discussed, that's not, that's really hidden and put to the side and feared of. And I think it's important to have these conversations of things that we are scared of and that we are scared to face, because it helps build understanding. It helps build resilience. It helps builds that toughness and just new perspective in terms of things that don't be discussed in a family or at events. And I know a lot of times you don't want to kill the vibe, and it's a family event and you bring up death, like that can fuck up the vibe for real. We know that. Like, I'm not saying to just be like in the middle of a fun event, hey guys, how y'all feel about dying one day? Don't do that. Let's not do that. But in terms of having deep conversations with people, I do feel like death is something that needs to be brought up and talked about, because we all are going to die one day. And that's just the honest truth. It's guaranteed. It's the only thing that's guaranteed in this life is death. And I think the more that we talk about it, the more that we bring awareness to it. And like I said, with my Eastern people of the world, with my Eastern people of the world, they already there. They already have this awareness of death. They always have this beautiful perspective of death, and knowing that we're more than just a body. Like I said, spiritual teachers of our time like Yeshua and Buddha all had these aspects and knowings as well. The thing that I've not with Buddha, but with Christianity and things like that, lines can get blurred and stories can get added and things like this, but you can see the patterns in every religion that you look at. It's truth in everything, right? And I had to read 80, 90 books to understand that, but it's all of these ascended masters was saying the same thing. You are more than the flesh. You are more than your body. When this is over, this is not the ending. And that's the importance. Somebody's calling me. But I feel like that's what I want to talk about in this episode. I feel like the more that we reflect on this, the more that we get better with that aspect of life, because it's natural. And I feel like something that I will want for y'all to take home this week is just to ask yourself, how do you feel about death? How do you feel about that happening one day? Because it is, right? And I know for some people it might be a hard sitting. It might be not easy to face that if you fear it. But I think the more that you face that, the more that it becomes easier to discuss, right? And I don't ask for a sudden change or a sudden perspective shift, but what I do ask for is to ask yourself, why do you feel this way about death? The most thing I'm always going to do is tell you to ask yourself questions, because that's the only way you can understand why and find the root of why you feel a certain way about something. And just really go deep on how you feel about dying one day and how you feel about death and the experiences that you had with death. The first time that you experienced death in your family or friends, or all of these things, to bring that up and have that awareness, and really, or you can discuss it with somebody that feels is open about it if you want to. Or if you don't have anybody to talk to about, you can leave it in the comment section. I will happily respond to your perspectives of death, or how death impacted you or affected you in your life, or your stories, or all your reflections. I will be there. So if you don't have anybody to talk to about, you can talk about it with me. And, I'm always open to hear, because your perspective matters and is important here for sure. So, that's all I have this week, y'all. I hope you can really take something home with you, and something is really felt in your spirit and resonate with you with the things that I had to convey about death. And I know it's not easy. To talk about this topic, but it was on my heart. It was on my spirit to talk about this. And I'm sending love. I hope y'all have an amazing week. I hope y'all, after this conversation, I'm not trying to, and make anybody day heavier. You know what I'm saying? It's all love. This is all in helps of everybody. Like I said, when I talk about these things, it's not only helping y'all, but it's helping me. It's healing me at the same time. So thank you. And make sure you comment, make sure you subscribe, make sure you like and support. If you're listening on Spotify, Apple Music, Amazon, all of the listening platforms, make sure you rate, make sure you show love on these platforms. We're trying to get the word out more to people, get these conversations out to the collective as much as possible. So continue to support. I feel all the love, and we're going to keep doing what we do. Thank y'all. Have a wonderful week. We'll be back next Wednesday. We're out.